About in what really has become perhaps the world's most baffling aviation mystery ever. The investigation now focusing on the pilot and the co-pilot. The pilot is named Zahari Ahmed Shah. He's a 53-year-old grandfather. He has a flight simulator in his home in Kuala Lumpur and more than 18,000 hours of flying time. Neighbors say he's a well-respected father and a member of the community, although there are questions this morning about his ties to a controversial political party.
And the co-pilot, meantime, is Farik Hamid. He's a 27-year-old co-pilot who lived at home with his parents. Friends and family say he was religious and serious about his career. He's clocked 2,700 hours of flying, and Malaysian Airlines says they were shocked when pictures surfaced of the co-pilot posing with young ladies in the cockpit during a flight, which, of course, is a security violation.
Meanwhile, the search area is now massive. It's focused on two huge areas, those red arcs you see there on your screen. A northern arc stretches over land from the border of Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan to northern Thailand, and a southern arc spans from Indonesia all the way down into the remote southern Indian Ocean. 25 countries now involved in this huge search.
And of course, we have team coverage this morning, and we start with a closer look at the men behind the controls of Flight 370 and whether anything in their personal lives can provide clues into this great mystery. ABC's Bob Woodruff is in the Malaysian capital of Kuala Lumpur with more. Bob.
Good morning, Bianna. There's some new news this morning. We've now learned that the pilots did not make any special requests for more fuel or to fly together on this particular flight. So the investigators are really looking at all those that are on board, especially those with aviation experience. This morning, investigators are digging deeper into information about the crew members, engineers, ground crew, passengers, and the two pilots. Investigators in unmarked cars spent the last 2 days going in and out of the gated neighborhood for the 53-year-old pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah. 4 security guards keeping reporters from getting in. Okay, so you're not allowed anybody in, any media in?
Yes, boss.
No way? They're concentrating on Zahari's flight simulator inside his house, studying 2 laptops found inside. A friend of his, Peter Chong, told me today the captain is considered a tech geek who invited other friends to play with it.
To be able to buy things off the counter and set up his own flight simulator. Yeah, and something he's proud of.
In addition to technology, Chong says Zahari loves cooking, community activities to help children in need, even building this soccer goal for kids, but also politics. Peter is the private secretary of the opposition party, and Zahari is a member. Despite this T-shirt, "Democracy is dead," he says the pilot is far from extreme.
He holds no position in the party. So I would consider him a silent member.
Last night, police have also searched the home of the co-pilot, Farik Abdul Hamid, looking for clues. But hours before the police arrived, we watched his 2 brothers leave with a box of noodles and drinks. As for personality, according to Channel 9, Australia's A Current Affair, he invited these women into the cockpit back in 2011, allegedly taking pictures and smoking cigarettes with the women during the flight. His friend who grew up in his hometown is a rising singer and insists Farik must be completely innocent.
Farik is a very nice guy, and he is still young, so I don't think he's involved.
The families are closely watching every piece of information. The brother of American passenger Philip Wood says they are just waiting too long.
We've gone from shock and disbelief to sadness to a little bit of anger, frankly. And I think there's a little bit of a drive to get some answers. We're trying really hard to understand what's going on.
There's more information this morning as well about that flight simulator. They did remove those 2 laptops, but they also took out the simulator itself to take it apart and just reassemble it again to see what they could find. Bianna?
Searching for any clues. Bob, our thanks to you. And taking control of the Malaysian Airlines jet would require a strong knowledge of the aircraft. So one question, was there anyone on board besides the pilots who would know how to operate the plane's sophisticated systems? ABC's Pierre Thomas has more from Washington. Good morning to you, Pierre. What are you hearing?
Good morning, Bianna. U.S. intelligence has been looking at the passengers and crew for a week now. Malaysian officials said today they continue to investigate passengers, but sources tell us the pilots are one of the early primary focuses. The reason? The plane did a series of maneuvers and may have been trying to evade radar. So far, U.S. officials have found no evidence any of the other passengers and crew had significant flight training.
So what do they know now, Pierre?
They're relying on the Malaysians for information, but the FBI has not been invited inside the country to help on the ground. And some in the U.S. government are really perplexed, extremely perplexed that the Malaysians seem to be slow in their police investigation. Bianna.
Perplexed and very frustrating for those folks here at home. All right, Pierre, thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. Okay, to the other major angle now on this story, the massive search for the plane itself. This morning, investigators are scrambling to get a clearer picture of the plane's last known maneuvers to try to zero in on the best place to look for it. ABC's David Curley is in Washington with more on that. David, good morning.
You know, what's unusual in this one, Dan, is we got some satellite pings, and they have set up a couple of corridors which normally we wouldn't have known about. And let me show you where those are. One goes to the north and one goes to the south because this is not GPS. They couldn't say exactly where the aircraft was. But it is the southern route that investigators are concentrating on. In fact, one source tells us they believe that this aircraft went off the grid and into the ocean someplace off Australia, and that's where they will be concentrating. And one more important information that we have learned, that this was a deliberate act. This morning we have learned from one source that the first dramatic turn off course by the Malaysian 777 was pre-programmed. That's right, whoever was at the controls programmed that hard left turn, followed by turning off two critical communication systems, as first reported by ABC News.
Somebody made this happen, and that somebody had to have sophisticated flying skills, probably for the 777. In other words, the suspicion falls on the two pilots.
And law enforcement is saying basically the same thing. While a hijacking has not been ruled out, pilot suicide is getting a lot of attention. Part of the reason? The way the jet was flown, turning left, then west, but then where? Satellite communications suggest those wide paths, but most likely the jet headed south into the Indian Ocean, flying for at least 6 hours after it was last seen on radar.
It's all consistent with somebody who wanted to simply vanish from the face of the earth and make sure that the ultimate crash site was never found.
Did one of the pilots kill the other? It's possible. Why didn't the passengers rebel? Whoever was flying could have depressurized the cabin. Those oxygen masks only work for a few minutes. Even with the search now narrowed to off the west coast of Australia, finding this jet will not be easy.
It's such a huge area that it's going to take some luck in finding any evidence at all.
But as I say, investigators tell us they are looking now off Australia. It's this southern route that is the most likely. Dan, a puzzling piece of information came out this morning. Apparently, whoever was in control shut off one of those communication systems before getting on the radio and telling the air traffic controllers back in Malaysia good night. So if you're trying to be dark and basically disappear, this one is kind of a strange little piece of information we got this morning.
Yet another strange little piece of information. David Curley, thanks for tracking all of this for us. Let's bring in now ABC News aviation consultant, retired Colonel Steve Ganyard. Steve, good morning to you. We now have 25 countries involved in this search. Given the huge swath of the planet that they're looking at here, what are the odds that they'll find anything?
Quite low, and every day that we go on, the odds get lower because this is a vast area that we have to look at. You know, David pointed out today that we're finally starting to focus on the southern cone, but that's a wide open Indian Ocean with, you know, depths of 15,000 feet. We have about 20 days left before that pinger runs out, and so it's going to be really tough to find it.
Well, are there any places in there, any islands where they could have landed the plane?
Short answer is no. They were so far out, so far west of Australia, perhaps 1,000 miles out to the west of Australia, and they were at the very limit of their gas. There wasn't enough gas to get anywhere.
All right, but I find that, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree, hard to compute. If you're smart enough and qualified enough to evade radar and to fly for that length of time and that span of distance, why just crash it into the ocean? Why not land it?
This is the question of motive, and your guess is as good as mine. We haven't seen any political statements, so is it terrorism? Is it a political statement about internal domestic politics? Was there something like an insurance scheme going on here? Your guess is as good as mine at this point, Dan.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
This gets more bizarre and more mysterious every day. We need some answers, and they aren't going to come until we find those black boxes.
Which, as you've said before, the hard fact is we may never find them.
We may never.
Okay, Steve Ganyard, we really appreciate your guidance throughout this. Thank you very much.
Of course, you're reminded of how devastating this is for all those loved ones.
Of course.
Brutal. Yep. To hold out hope.
Yeah.